All right, well, it's 3 o'clock and it's time to start the panel, and welcome everybody. Welcome to our attendees. If you're just joining us, we're happy to have you. And if you have some questions over the course of the event, please just put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can also use the chat function. Our moderator, Bill Smedick, will be taking your questions and sharing those questions with our amazing panel of student, athlete, entrepreneurs. I don't think these guys sleep. I don't know how they do it all, but we're so happy to have them here. After this panel, which is being recorded, I will share it with everyone. So you can watch it again, you can share it with your friends and your family, and we're looking forward to a great event. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Bill and I'm going to disappear. So thank you again and enjoy.
Well, many thanks to you, Jamie, and the Alumni Association for putting this all together. I'm delighted to introduce to you our panelists here today. A little bit about myself. I'm one of the faculty members in the Center for Leadership Education. I'm the director of the Leadership Studies program. And so we have a business plan competition that runs out of our office and our center for the university that's been going on for over 20 years. And I was introduced to the panelists when they competed in that in the category of tech innovation back just a little over a year ago. And to say it was impressive is not being as honest as I should be, because it was beyond impressive. They won first place in the mobile applications category, which was a really robust area. Those of you who know Hopkins know that the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation is strong, and these guys really represented that well. I'll continue to follow their development and their commitment to this project and this innovative tech innovation through their work with JHU Tech Ventures, a real commitment from the university in that area. And I serve as an advisor in the Social Innovation Lab. So I've seen these guys around taking advantage of the resources that are at Hopkins. I have to admit, I just absolutely love the tribute to Coach Margraff. Jim was a frequent guest speaker in many of my leadership related classes, and Jim and I had actually started in 1989 on the exact same date. We got to know each other when he became the head football coach, and at that time I was the director of student activities. I always marveled at the JHU football program as it rose to greatness under Jim's leadership. But more impressively, I was indeed impressed how he was able to sustain that success over time. And so I'm going to ask the panelists to kind of tell their story, but I'd also like to hear from them sometime during the course of our panel the impact and what they learned from Coach Margraff in terms of how this has helped them in their program and in their corporation. So that's all you want to hear from me. We're all here to listen to Aaron, Mike, Patrick, and Rowan. And so I'll let them introduce themselves. I'll let them introduce their company and take it from here. And then I'll field any questions that you have, those of you who are attending. So take it from here.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. We're very happy that you're here with us today and for taking the time. I also want to take a quick second to thank Jamie for putting this all together. I know my team and I are super excited to, share our story with all of you. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. The story actually starts about 7 years ago, the first time when I picked up a golf club. I went out with some of my buddies and I was absolutely terrible. I could barely hit the ball. So I kind of went through the normal protocol of going to coaches and trainers and watching YouTube tutorials, and I really wasn't getting any better. And one thing that I noticed through all this was that all of the pros had access to a lot of tools like TrackMan and things like that, tools that gave them access to analytics of their shots, but cost upwards of $20,000. So the average golfer just didn't have an opportunity to use something like this. So I really thought about that and wanted to find a way to, make this technology more accessible for everyone. And as a 13-year-old, I didn't get very far developing a smart golf ball. As you can imagine, it's a pretty large engineering challenge. You have to make basically a computer small enough to fit inside of a golf ball, accurate enough to track all of the analytics, and also be able to withstand the impact of getting hit by a golf club. So I didn't get very far, but the idea stuck with me throughout middle school and high school. And upon getting to Johns Hopkins in August of 2018, I was on the football team there and actually was introduced to Mike and Patrick. And as Bill mentioned, Jim Margraff did a great job of not only developing a great program, but putting a lot of effort into developing young men. And one of his big things was to kind of teach us life lessons every day. And one day he was telling us a story, and the overview of the story was, if not now, when? And I really took that to heart and decided, what am I waiting for to start this company? So actually, lucky enough, I knew I needed an electrical engineer, and Patrick was one of the few on the team. But I also sat next to him in a marketing class on campus. So over about 2 weeks or so, I went through and kind of interviewed him. I was like, what are you capable of? Can you kind of help build this product? And the answer was yes. So without further ado, Patrick, do you want to give a brief intro of yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So just going on that, we had marketing class together. Was pretty funny. I kept on catching him looking at electrical components, and I was like, man, like what is this kid looking at? Like what is he doing? Just adding these stuff to his cart, like not really looking at the data sheets or anything. It was funny, but that was a nice intro to Aaron and his idea. But a little about me. I'm a Maryland native. Played 4 years here for Hopkins football and an electrical engineering major. Looking forward to seeing what Graff can do in the future. And I think that's good for me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So Patrick and I kind of took the next 2 or so months of kind of figuring out the feasibility of the product and figuring out actually what we were going to build. But we also took that time to write a business plan and, develop the company a little bit. And we spent all this time, got so excited, and we actually went to present to one of our professors and kind of say, what's the first step to building this company? We had this whole presentation ready, and we went through, and he cut us off within a couple minutes and said, you guys are a software company. You don't have a software engineer. It's going to take you a ton of money to outsource that. You're at Johns Hopkins. Go find somebody that can do this. So Patrick and I took the next couple weeks thinking about who would be a good fit for that. Mike was also on the football team, one of the few computer science majors on the team. So naturally, he seemed like a great fit. So Mike, do you want to give a brief intro?
Yeah, so my name is Mike Everly. Graduating senior now, was obviously studying computer science, as Aaron mentioned. Kind of interesting backstory is that I didn't come to Hopkins to play football. Actually, I was recruited as a baseball player, and I played 4 years there. But I had kicked 1 year, my post-grad year of high school, I had kicked footballs. And so kind of towards the end of sophomore year, I was talking to some of the guys on the team and mentioned that. And I had actually emailed Coach Margraff before I got to school, but they had some really good place kickers. There was kind of no need for me. And they basically said, it could be interesting if you wanted to try again. So I emailed Coach Margraff, and he basically was like, yeah, come on in and let's talk. Him and Coach Babb, the baseball coach, were great friends. So they kind of worked out a way to make it possible. And really appreciative to both sides of that with being flexible, because it gave me a better experience. But furthermore, without that, I probably wouldn't have met or gotten to know Aaron and PK so well. So Aaron actually kind of called me one day over winter break. And he was basically like, what do you know about Bluetooth technology? Your software development skills. Was kind of telling me this idea for a smart golf ball. I thought it was really cool, and I was like, yeah, I can help out a little bit, but I'm actually in the middle of some stuff, so give me kind of a month or two, and I'll get back to you. I was doing these online courses on Coursera, and so I kind of got off the phone with him and started doing this machine learning homework again, and then I was just like, this is completely boring compared to what we could be trying to do. So I called Aaron back maybe 15 minutes later, and we just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, so that was a really funny story, but at that point we really had, our engineering base set. We had kind of everything we needed to get started, but one thing that we ran into kind of a chicken and egg issue because we had, the engineering expertise, but we didn't have capital, and we couldn't get started without the capital, and we couldn't get the capital without getting started. So the next thing that we kind of decided to do was to try to get some logos and app screenshots built and stuff, to try to get a little bit of traction and, attract some investments. So with that, I went and emailed probably about 100, local design agencies. And I basically said, hey, we're college students with a great idea. We don't have any money, so we can't pay you, but maybe you can take like some profit sharing for a crowdfunding campaign or something like that down the road. And obviously, 99 of those said no. One of those actually said no, and the but was no, but we know this guy, Rowan Fraser, who might be interested in helping out. Got on the phone with Rowan that day, and he agreed to potentially make a logo for us. His kind of involvement in the company has greatly expanded since then, but Rowan, why don't you go ahead and give a brief intro on yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So my name's Rowan Fraser, UMBC class of 2007. As Aaron mentioned, I first spoke with him over email. The funny thing is, I actually misremembered this story until about a week ago. I had been telling people, I actually did freelance work for JHU Film and Media Department about 3 years back. And I'd been telling everybody I had done such a good job for JHU that they had recommended me out to these entrepreneurs and these startup people on campus. And then the other day, Aaron actually forwarded me the email where we just chatted, and he was like, hey, can you help us out? And I said, sure. So it wasn't as romantic as I had remembered, but yeah, I have a background in branding. Aaron approached me with the idea. Obviously, there were some things to work out. There was no financing at the time. The idea was very, much in its infancy. So I didn't really know what my role was at the start. And as Aaron alluded to, my role's grown over time. And the more I learned about the product, the more I learned about these guys and experienced their work ethic, the more I was attracted to the company, and I wanted to be a part of the movement that we were starting. So my end of the company as it stands is the head of design and marketing. And it kind of rounds out the team.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for that. So we finally had this whole team in place, and we actually have one more member that's not on the panel today, Alex Forti. We recognize that we didn't necessarily have a ton of golf expertise between the four of us. So Alex kind of pulls his weight right there by being previous PGA player, and does some tutorials on YouTube and things like that. So that's our team, but kind of going in chronological order, the next thing we needed to do was raise some capital. So Mike, I think, wants to touch a little bit on our initial seed raise and kind of how we went about doing that.
Yeah, so Aaron had originally kind of planned out, I guess maybe this was even coming from years before when he was thinking about how to do this, to try and crowdfund the whole kind of project and development. And I actually was part of a student group on campus, A-Level Capital. It's like a student-led VC firm, so I had a little bit of background experience in seed and early stage equity raises. So I basically kind of pitched Aaron to say, like, let's try this instead, and let's see if we can get some investors from friends and family, people around the Hopkins community who have a lot more experience than us and can kind of help us. So basically, Aaron took the first thing that we figured we needed was, a pitch deck, which we worked together with Rowan to make. And then Aaron took a golf ball and basically sawed it in half. And then in his dorm room, took a knife and like cut out just a chunk in the golf ball. And we took this off the shelf chip that would basically in no way be useful towards actually building our product, and would put it in there, and we held it together with rubber bands. And I built this pretty awful web app that was basically just like a plain blue screen that would just show in like white font what the metrics were if I threw the person we were pitching to the golf ball. And this was obviously something that was incredibly new to us. So some of the lessons that we were keeping in mind from Coach Graff and from football were obviously just pride and poise, which is kind of the base motto of the football team. But then another really important one was pressure is for soldiers and surgeons. And so one of the things we're understanding is that, yeah, we kind of had this pressure to execute. We needed money and we needed it fast. But at the same time, we still had a great opportunity in front of us. So we were kind of reminding ourselves just to enjoy it. And enough of these pitches went well that we were able to kind of get off the ground. But certainly not all of them. Aaron and I had a number of pitches that kind of felt like, did you just bring us in here to tell us that you don't like our idea, or is there anything else? So we kind of toured around doing that for a bit. And kind of a big turning point for us was actually the business plan competition. A funny story there is that we had filled out the application, and there was a whole kind of background you had to fill out, basically like the primary contents of the business plan. And we had turned that in about 2 weeks before the final pitch. And that was kind of throughout the course of a day on a Friday. And we had actually completely forgotten about the business plan competition. But the good thing was that we had been working on this pretty much every day. So we were actually very well prepared for it. But I got a text on Thursday night from a friend of mine saying, "Oh, you're right after me tomorrow." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "The business plan competition." And I was like, I called Aaron and was like, "Dude, we completely forgot about this." And he had some classes in the morning that he had to take care of. So I just kind of went and took the morning section. And then Aaron joined in the afternoon and helped take on the final pitch. But that was kind of where we started getting some momentum and really feeling confident that we were prepared and understood what we had to do to go forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And through that, one thing that we noticed was, a lot of the Hopkins, family wanted to support us, but they didn't necessarily, want to write some of the minimum check size. That was a pretty big number at the time. So one thing that we recognized early on was that, people really wanted to get behind us. So we went ahead and launched an equity-based crowdfunding campaign and raised $60,000 from 200 people, which was really exciting for us. And it kind of showed us that, there was a big group of people behind us, and, we really were onto something. So that was really interesting. That was really fun for us, but you guys all came here to learn more about the product and hear about Graff Golf. So Rowan, why don't you go ahead and give a brief little high-level overview of, the positioning of the product and the goals and values of the company.
Sure. Yeah. So I would just reiterate one thing that was mentioned earlier, which is the Jim Margraff quote of "If not now, when." I mean, I can say with personal experience that everyone in this company, maybe not as much myself, but definitely PK, Mike, and Aaron, more or less embody that quote. And I have limited experience with startups, but I would say that with Graff, the biggest motivating component of this company is 100% the people's within the company's drive. Nobody in this group of people really takes more than a couple minutes off on any given day. Everyone is just absolutely full speed ahead at all times. And it's not like we're just kind of running around aimlessly. I mean, if there's a problem, we're trying to solve it. If there's a question, we're trying to have it answered. And it's very inspiring and very motivating to be in this group of people right now. But about the company itself, when we got together to make an investor pitch, we realized that we hadn't really thought to ourselves and taken a step back to think, what are we actually selling? What are we trying to get people to believe in? I mean, getting someone to buy a product very plainly might just come down to how you price it a lot of the times. If you go grocery shopping or if you go to Price Club, you might not have much loyalty to one brand over another. But to give yourself a really good shot as a brand, it helps to stand for something. And what we did to figure out what that was we went back to Aaron's original idea that he had when he was a kid, which was, why can't I have access to these kinds of statistics, data analysis that professionals and even some amateurs have the ability to access? Why is it price gated? Well, why doesn't my phone do it? Why these things are accessible in a lot of areas. What is the issue here? And how can I kind of connect the dots and create something that can bring something like this to the masses? And the idea behind Graff is a little bit bigger than the sport of golf itself. I would say that the idea is trying to enable athletes to have access to that kind of data just wholly. And, our idea can be extended to other sports. And I think inevitably it will be. But for the time being, the product lends itself most easily to golf, given the people that are in the company right now. And then as far as how we basically took that general idea and general focus and applied it to the pitch deck. And that kind of became our calling card. And when we would talk to people, that was what we harped on. We wanted to enable athletes to have access to that kind of data. And the ball and the analytics platform on the app is the way that we're serving up for the sport of golf. Once we kind of got that rallying cry for ourselves, it made a lot of other things easier for us. It became easier for us to talk to people about ultimately what we are working on all the time and what we're crafting. And it became easier for us to sell the idea into people that were kind of wanted more clarity, or maybe were confused on the specifics of the technology itself.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I think that's a great overview of kind of the company as a whole. But Mike and Patrick, why don't you dive a little bit deeper into the technology, the hardware and software, and exactly what we're building there?
Yeah, so I'll start going back to watching Aaron look at a bunch of parts on during our marketing class. Once I figured out exactly what he was doing it for, he told me all about the smart golf ball. He said, I want a golf ball that when you hit it, gives me all these stats. He said, I know I need to put a chip in it, but other than that, I don't really know where to get going. So that's why I was like, oh man, like I'm really doing a sensors lab right now where like half of what we're talking about, like Bluetooth connection, getting velocities and angles and everything like that. Like I'm working on it right now. That'd be easy peasy. Like, let's get it going. So then we started working on it. The first problem was obviously getting the chip to be the right size, because I mean, it needs to fit inside of a golf ball. So I went look for components that were small enough to fit inside of a golf ball all together into the dimensions that we were given. And then also like perform the functions we needed under the stress that it would be under, like during a hit or just being trapped inside of a golf ball in the hot weather. So that's pretty much where we started. Since then, we teamed up with some engineers up at MIT. Once we got a base design down, they helped refine it, make it a little more manufacturable. And we've been doing impact testing, heating testing, everything's been going well with that. We finished that up and we're looking forward to integrating that with the software soon, with our first order of balls coming up.
Yeah, so I obviously computer science work a little more on the software side of things. But something that was interesting kind of early on was when we were pitching to investors, you get kind of asked like, why you guys, why your team? And basically our approach, why we think it's different, why we have an advantage is that, as Aaron mentioned, we kind of built out an engineering team. We see this as an engineering problem that then has applications in golf. So then with the team, you have to supplement golf knowledge, which is where Alex Forte comes in as our resident golf expert. But essentially, there are some other teams out there that are primarily professionals in the golf industry, but don't really have engineering experience. So in order to kind of figure out why this was going to be, we had an idea, but why this was going to be such a challenge, we actually got on the phone with some of these companies. So basically what we figured out right away is that measuring spin rate and measuring exit velocity are going to be really hard. And spin rate's kind of a critical metric in golf. It probably tells you the most about the quality of your contact and the quality of your shot. So actually through those conversations, we kind of realized that obviously there were challenges and there were some limitations, but that it certainly wasn't impossible to kind of work around those. So that was kind of a huge advantage for us. And I've actually seen a couple comments here in the Q&A just about patents generally. So kind of just an update there. We're hoping to hear back in the next couple weeks about our initial patent application. And then actually extending on top of that, we will be applying for a continuation in part, which actually kind of includes the solution that we've come up with for how we're going to address exit velocity. So essentially we got started with a patent lawyer last year, and we were looking for tools to try and measure spin rate because basically the gyroscopes that exist out there can't do that. And we were actually pretty stuck for a while until the patent lawyer himself, for some reason, was kind of Googling around and actually found a specific component that could be helpful for us. So that was just kind of a nice break in the road. And then as far as exit velocity goes, we're actually kind of using some complex models that deal with the fact that at certain velocities, basically any golf ball hit above 85 miles an hour, the accelerometer will actually black out. So that's something that for other teams has basically ended their pursuit of a smart golf ball that can be hit by a driver, which for us, we think is going to be not only just kind of a huge breakthrough, but some really great intellectual property that's going to allow us to kind of own our technology going forward and make it really hard for others to replicate. And then additionally, I was able to, through the school, through a couple different classes actually, orient my projects, my classwork around things we wanted to build for Graff Golf. So I built a web app and kind of the initial stages of a mobile app, basically through larger projects that I was assigned in class. So that was really great that my professors were flexible with that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was all really exciting. We finally had this real product that, consumers were getting excited about and the market was trying, starting to catch up on. And with that, we were finally in a place where we were comfortable enough to kind of deliver to the market. So with that, we knew we wanted to start accepting pre-orders. That was a great way for us to kind of judge the market, as well as get some capital in place for an initial inventory order. So we went ahead and on February 25th, launched a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. Rowan, why don't you touch on a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So Indiegogo was really fun. As with many endeavors that we've taken at Graff, I kind of, the idea is put out there. Hey, this seems like a good idea. We need to take on pre-orders. We could either fund it ourselves and do it directly from our website, or we can use one of these services that's sort of designed to do this. I'm always the nervous one that's like, wait, have we looked at every single possible option? And usually it's a back and forth between Aaron and I, where Aaron's saying like, let's just go, let's just do it. But it was a big undertaking. I think crowdfunding kind of seems like a simple thing a lot of the times, because it's like, yeah, you just kind of turn it on and you see what you get. And I think it can be for some things, but if you want to do it well, it's hard. You really you have a small time format and a limited attention span for people that visit the page, and you want to do the product justice. So it was a lot of kind of combing through all the things that we had to show, and what images we needed to create. Some of the images we had to literally mock up because we didn't have actual images of the chip itself, but we needed things that reflected the chip, but there are some proprietary things about the chip that we can't show. So it's a strange game where people that are investing in a prototype stage product, they want to know where you're at, but you can't really, give away too much at the wrong time. So it was a tricky game, but ultimately it paid off dividends, and I think close to 1,000 users and about $112,000 worth of pre-orders in just about 2 months. So it went way better than we could have hoped for. I think our original goal was $20,000 or $50,000.
20,000.
20,000. So as things were growing, everything was a happy surprise for us. We actually worked very closely with a small Facebook marketing firm. It was a great experience for us, and it helped us learn quite a bit about how we actually start to move the product, which is a different realm for us that we're just now making a foray into, because we've been sort of in our little Graff Golf cubby where we've been, talking about the product, how amazing it's going to be, and what do we stand for, and what do we look like, and here's our beautiful little logo, and man, this is the best team ever, and it's all well and good. And then when you just kind of sit it on a shelf somewhere and hope that someone buys it, you're in a new realm. So that's the realm that we're now transitioning into, and Indiegogo was a very encouraging first step.
Yeah, for sure. So like Rowan alluded to, we were in that R&D stage for, almost 18 months where we were just sitting there every day, developing the software and the hardware that ultimately would become the end product. So now we're, like you mentioned, going through this really awesome phase where we're kind of turning the corner into a real business. So that's been super exciting. There's new problems and learning experiences there, such as fulfillment, supply chain, customer service, and things like that. But we have everything in place now. So we're really in that spot where, we're getting ready to fulfill these orders. We're putting some final tests in order, doing these last little pieces to ultimately get the product to our consumers. With that being said, I do want to take a couple steps back here and go back to, I know one of the questions in the chat right now has to do with the name, and I do want to touch on that because that's a really important aspect to us. I'm embarrassed to say the initial name when I was 13 years old was Flog Sports. Now that was just golf spelled backwards. So immediately when Rowan came into the company, he suggested that we change that. We actually went and settled upon Upshot Golf and rolled with that for about a year. So we were really excited with that. We thought it was a good fit. But ultimately, we ran into some trademark issues. And proactively, we went ahead and changed the name. So we're, in the market looking for a different name. And PK, why don't you, give a little backstory on, what that means to us?
Yeah, so as you all know, we're three football players here at Hopkins. Coach Margraff was a coach of mine for 3 years and Mike and Aaron's for 1 year. And just about the time it was time to change our name, sadly, he passed away. Over that winter break, we thought of a few things. We really wanted to go with like a techie name because we didn't want people to see us as like an athletic company, but more as like a sports tech company. So we were looking at some ideas, and then the idea of like Graff came up. People think of like Graff as a spelt like Graph, kind of like mathy, science techie, but we figured, okay, we just spent the last 3 years, we have this amazing opportunity to go to Johns Hopkins that was brought to us by a great man. We met each other because of Coach Margraff. We figured why not put a little twist on the name, give a little tribute to him. That way, like inside, we always know that this company from its foundation is inspired by him, but then it also has a good sound for customers that may not know who Coach Margraff is. I personally don't think we could have had a better inspiration for anyone when it comes to running a successful program over the course of decades. He did it the right way. He focused on his morals and always had the right priorities. And then I think another big thing for like wanting to be inspired by him came from just going to his ceremony after he passed, seeing how many people he touched, hundreds, if not thousands of people were significantly impacted by him in his life and his family. And I just think that it was the best choice for us moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing to add to that is, he is super important to us, and having him in our name is just a daily reminder of what he stood for. And one thing that we vowed to do throughout this whole process is just to donate 1% of all of our resources to charities that he would support. So yeah, like PK mentioned, we're just super excited to be able to do something like that and remember him in a way that, means a lot to us. So thanks PK for sharing that. Let's pivot right here a little bit. And Mike, why don't you field some of the questions from the Q&A?
Yeah, so we have a couple questions here. One that I just saw that I think Patrick might have answered in the chat was wondering about how good we are at golf. And that's a funny one because we actually get that a lot. People assume that we must be good golfers. And we're definitely not bad golfers, but this is something that, as Aaron mentioned, like the inspiration for the product and what got us all excited was that this is something that we would use to get better. Personally, as a baseball player, if I drive the ball straight, it goes pretty far, puts me in good chance to try and get par or better. A lot of times it goes off into the woods or worse. So there's a lot of room for all of us to improve. And so we're actually looking forward to getting the product so that we can use it on our own. We have a question here from Brian about, is there a prototype? So the most advanced prototype that we've had so far is essentially been used for impact testing. And we've actually been in a lot of conversations with different golf manufacturers. And we actually are hoping to get back in the next couple weeks. We had a little bit of delay on the shipping here, actually getting them through customs into China, but we've paired up with the ball manufacturer based out of France called Krypton Golf. Their manufacturing facility is located in China. So in the next 2 weeks, we'll have 10 kind of final prototypes of a golf ball, and those will actually get sent to a lab in San Diego called Golf Labs. You can look it up. They use a robot testing machine that you can actually program in all of the different aspects of a swing to your specifications. So we'll be going through basic flight quality testing there, comparing our ball to existing balls in the market that are both similar in composition and ones that aren't. Things like Pro V1 balls that are top of the line. We want to understand how far off of kind of that target we are. There's a question here about data for balls that fail versus balls that don't. So essentially kind of the first thing that we tested, as PK mentioned, with the engineers at MIT, was the impact testing itself and how long the balls will last. So they've been tested right now, all the electronics up to 50,000 Gs, which is basically like a really aggressive driver. And we haven't had any failures. So if you put the ball down in front of someone, one of those guys who's on like the long drive tour, I'm sure that they could probably break it. But we're pretty confident that the balls are going to last for hopefully a few hundred shots. And with how we've kind of been designing our membership, where users can earn new sleeves over time for free, we anticipate that they should be able to use the ball at a rate where they're never running out and never actually having to pay more unless they want to stock up.
Yeah, so just to elaborate on that, I know we have one question from John right here. We actually are kind of implementing a rather unique business model and pricing structure. So as opposed to selling these balls, as a sleeve and people just pay a one-time, sleeve purchasement, we're actually getting people into the company. They're becoming members to the Graff Golf team. So they'll be subscribing for a set price. They can prepay for an annual rate or just go month to month. But with that, they're never actually purchasing the sleeves of balls. They'll get a free sleeve because, here, our real value add here is in the analytics and in the metrics that we're providing people. It's not so much in the actual sleeve. So the golf ball, it's a huge innovation in itself. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's really the tool that we're using to deliver the analytics and the insight. So that's what people are going to be purchasing, and we'll be giving away the tool, which is the golf ball.
We have a question here about the lacrosse world, and something that we've had a lot of conversations around, particularly early on, was kind of how can we apply this to other sports, and it's something that we haven't entirely defined yet. We know that there's opportunity, so obviously we're very focused on golf right now, and we're excited with where we're going, but we have a lot to do still. We still have a lot of testing to do. We're very confident in it, but there are answers that we need to confirm to get to launch. So kind of looking to expand into other sports is definitely an opportunity, but it's something down the line, and we're pretty much entirely focused on golf right now. Then we also have a question about locating the ball, and this is something that we're pretty excited about, again, because we hit balls off in the woods all the time, and is the ability to use the Bluetooth connection to actually triangulate the ball's position. And a lot of the kind of questions there is that actually, like, how long does the Bluetooth range cover? And the way we think about it is that you generally know the direction that your ball goes. So it might go way off into the woods, but the general direction that it went. So as long as you can get within what we believe to be hopefully about a 100-yard vicinity, then you can actually reconnect to the ball, and we'll have a locating feature that's then using the strength and direction of that connection to help triangulate its position. So we should be able to ideally actually deliver you directly to, within a yard of where the ball is. So if it's under a leaf, behind a rock, something like that, you'll be able to find it.
Awesome. Rowan, do you want to touch on that last question from Greg?
The endorsements?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Can this be contextualized in some kind of way, or Aaron, how are you interpreting?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say on this is just,
okay.
In terms of launch, from a soft launch perspective, we're doing everything that we can to get this to our Indiegogo consumers. That's priority number one. Yeah. And with that, we're really looking to expand, but summer 2021 is really going to be our big breaking point, kind of when we get off into the rest of the golf market. So with that being said, we're open to everything. As we always say, we're open to any conversation. All we're doing right now is learning, but our focus remains pretty narrow and getting these units out to our current customers right now, and potentially delivering to a select number of people over the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and I would just add to what you said, Aaron, and hopefully this touches on the endorsement point. But yeah, basically, we're, as far as the marketing goes, we're very much learning at the same time that we're positioning ourselves. So I just want to emphasize something Aaron said, because I think it's really, really important. Graff is essentially a membership program. So we're not really in the golf ball business. It just so happens that the ball we've created is really special, and there's a lot like it that's out there and in development, but ours is a different version, and I would venture to say that it's a cut above the rest. So when you see images of it and when we talk about it, I think that tends to be the most enticing facet of the business. But the reality is, it's really not the whole business. It's one component of what our company is essentially trying to deliver to people. And what we're trying to deliver to people is essentially a service, an analytics service. And that's why we've taken the stand, and we've reached this crossroads where we decided to position ourselves more as a membership program, because we think it makes more sense for us to stop talking about our company as if we're selling golf balls. The golf ball is something you get by joining. There's not going to be a large price gate, and it's not going to be all in on one individual ball. Essentially, that's going to be one part of the Graff golf experience. And to touch on the endorsements piece, to reiterate what Aaron said, I think that it's sort of the sky's the limit. We're definitely very open. We feel that this product has potential for the consumer, for the weekend golfer, for the serious golfer, maybe every day even. I think that it has benefit for very skilled golfers that maybe don't have access to a TrackMan or a launch monitor, or maybe maybe their favorite coach or instructor would like to get some kind of analytics to supplement their lessons. So it has potential on courses. It has potential at ranges. You can have an analysis station in your backyard. So there's a lot of different brands that it would make sense for us to partner with. And at this point, to what Aaron was saying, we're sort of learning. We're learning about these companies. We're learning about ourselves, and we're just trying to find the best fits for us.
Real quick, Alice, just want to say thank you for tuning in. Appreciate your message. If you or any of your sons need a ball or two or want to shoot around, we'll always be around. We'll make sure to keep on doing things right and honor coach.
We have a question from Doug here about some of those data failures that we touched on. So basically, yeah, basically Doug's asking about how many balls we'll give to replace ones that fail. And the answer there is that's something that we don't know yet. We need to basically get this final product back soon and thoroughly test it. And what that means is at a lot of different swing velocities, saying, how many times can you hit the ball at an 85-mile-per-hour swing velocity, 100, all the way up to 125, which is incredibly aggressive, and say, how long until we see failures in the ball. And that'll allow us to kind of accurately project what we can expect from golfers. And then obviously we'll adjust once we hit launch. And, that kind of the thing for us that's nice is that we don't have to have, we want to have it figured out as much as possible, but we don't have to have the pricing necessarily perfect. We don't have to necessarily have profit maximized in the first year. So we're obviously going to be very supporting, and we are very appreciative of those that have chosen to support us in the pre-order and that are going to buy the product off launch. We want them to have a great experience. We don't want any of them to be running out of balls because they're failing. So that's something that we're going to be super lenient with early on, and just trying to support the customers as much as possible, because obviously the more balls they have and the more they can use them, the better feedback we're going to get about how we can build out the most effective platform possible. And that's really what we're pursuing at the end of the day.
All right, let's keep with that theme of failure. I'd like to hear from you guys, maybe a a story or two even around the concept that we teach in entrepreneurial studies around failing forward. Maybe a time or two that you made some mistakes and learned from failure, and clearly you've shown some resiliency being able to do that. But you have any storytelling for us about learning from failure?
Yeah, I think one initially comes to mind for Mike and I. As he mentioned earlier, we spent a lot of time pitching to investors, and a lot of the time, we heard no, but most of the time that no was a respectful no, and it was, no, you should improve this and this. But there were certainly some times when we went into the room and they would bring us in. We were preparing so hard for these pitches, and we'd give it everything. And they didn't even, they were saying no before they let us in the door. I think there's a couple of Mike's smiling right now that we're both thinking of. But yeah, it's certainly, it's kind of heartbreaking, because you go in, you put so much effort into these super smart, successful people that potentially are interested in investing in your company, and then to hear them kind of laugh you out the room or something, it's pretty hard. But one thing that I know Mike and I did pretty well, and the rest of the team, was to just kind of put that behind us, and say, we know we have a great idea. We're going to keep, pressing forward. And we did that. And, pretty shortly thereafter, we did find the right investors, and we were able to close that seed round. So we certainly had to hear no a lot of times, a lot more than we heard yes, but just being persistent and, keeping with it led to some pretty great things.
Some of that too is just kind of learning to trust ourselves a little bit. Obviously there are significant areas where we lack experience, and what we were looking for with the investors is people that can help guide us through that. But one of the things that we learned is that there are a ton of smart people out there that are not always going to see the immediate value in what we're building, what we're trying to do. They're not going to like some of the risks that are associated. So, while we want to be respectful and take every opportunity to learn from people that know a lot more about different aspects of business than we do, understand that not everyone is going to see value in it, and that's completely okay. And then, the fact that some people don't want to be involved, there are things that they don't like about it, isn't the end of the world. And it's just kind of like move on to the next one. And after a few kind of rough pitches, we just kind of got in the groove of things. We're moving on, like good or bad, we're going to find other people out there that are excited and want to be involved.
Absolutely. And Jim, just to answer your question, it is being taped. So this will be shared with you guys after. So yeah, you can absolutely, have access to it.
Can you see the question from Life Design Lab up there? Maybe, I think that's a terrific question.
Yeah, I could take a stab at that one. I think this is going off the quote of "If not now, when?" And being quoted here from Life Design Lab is "The best time is now." As a philosophy for being willing to take a shot at the project, can you talk a little bit more about what this project means in your life design, that is in your larger vision of who you are and what it means to make bold moves? Yeah, I think this is a fantastic question. I think I had mentioned the Jim Margraff quote earlier, "If not now, when?" I think we all probably have at some point. It is honestly the short answer to this question is it's pretty hard to make bold moves when you're part of a startup, and at the same time there's a certain freedom of not having a company that's completely off the ground yet, that allows you to, where you just sort of have to. So it's an interesting balance. In maybe our day-to-day lives or our day-to-day jobs, we might not have that balance to worry about, because, for example, if you work at a desk, your tasks are there waiting for you every morning, and they're not going anywhere even after you clock out for the day. So as far as making moves, it's just kind of a given. When you're part of a startup, it's kind of all on you, and you just kind of have to constantly be considering how much you can take on. You want to be forthright, and you definitely want to make sure that you're making good decisions. But at the same time, you have to always keep in mind that sometimes a decision simply has to be made. And this is something that I can't say enough about the team that I'm on here, all of these people that we're working with are very, very good at knowing when it's time to make a decision and move forward. And you know, we can worry about perfecting things down the line, but we got to get something out there, because timing is a huge part of what we're doing. We're in a tech sector now. Timing is a huge part of tech. So at a certain point, a decision needs to be made, and you just have to be aware when that time comes and take advantage of it. But when there's downtime, you can reflect and you can think about, well, was that a good decision? Was that bad? Can we learn from that? But it's a bit unnerving, and that I say that life design balance is something that's ever evolving, and something that I think about probably just about every day.
Does anybody else want to? Let me reframe that just a little bit. We're talking about the company is one thing, Rowan, and I'd love for the rest of you guys to kind of fit in. You're all young men with a long life in front of you. So where does this fit into your life design 20 years from now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And, we've said all along, whether or not we're doing everything in our power to make this a success. And it's ultimately the downright dream to be running this full time and to have a full-fledged business, as soon as 6 months from right now. But when it comes down to it, it's a great experience. We're learning so much day to day that you can't find in a job or in an internship or in school. So, this company means so much to us, and it's something that we're going to remember for our whole lives. It's something that's going to have a huge effect on our whole lives. And like I said, we're doing everything in our power to get a product out there as soon as possible. And that's our number one priority right now. And learning along the way is just something that comes with that. And it's really an amazing thing that, we've been lucky to be in this position, and, that we've all kind of assumed these roles, and taken this opportunity that at once was just, one of my ideas when I was 13, and turned it into a business, and, gotten customers behind us, and, have all these people supporting us. So at the end of the day, it's an incredible experience, and we're just thankful to have each other, to have this idea, and to continue to work on it each day.
I think something else that's been pretty interesting, and just kind of thinking about your experiences as a student when you're in school, whether it is schoolwork or internships, everything is can feel long term, but it's relatively short term. Even if you're doing a semester long project, in kind of the grand scheme of things, that's a relatively short period of time to commit to something. And on this and in the past couple months, we've made some advancements that we're really excited about that kind of spurred us to launch the pre-order. But we basically did a whole year where there wasn't necessarily a light at the end of the tunnel, where there were questions that needed to be answered that we were working on, but that we didn't have the answers for at the time, that we knew we needed to be able to solve to have a chance to become a successful business. And so just kind of something that I'll definitely take with me going forward, whether we're successful or not, which I believe we really can be. It's just kind of the amount of time that it can take to sink into something, to truly build something that's valuable and that means a lot to you.
Yeah, so I guess for me, just being a part of this and taking leaps time and time again, one, just with the business plan competition, going into the WeFunder, into the Indiegogo campaign, like those are big risks for all of us, honestly. And I think the thing that I take home with me the most is that I need to be able to take those risks to be successful. I mean, we're doing pretty well, and I don't think I'd be happy if, just with myself as a person, if I wasn't taking these same risks every day. And I start a real career in the summer. If this company keeps on going as it's going, I see no reason why I wouldn't just cut that job and do this full time. Really just being like the epitome of if not now, when? Because there's no other time to do it. And that's really what I take from that quote.
We have a question here from John asking, putting is the key part of the game with scoring. Could this help to improve putting? Example, side spin or keeping in putting, putter square at impact. Yeah, so this is something that we're kind of going to be building on going forward. There are actually a couple smart putting balls out there that exist. The one that's been out there for the longest is the Gen I1 smart putting ball by Coach Labs. And so it's actually something that we actually looked at the reviews maybe close to a year ago now when we were getting into this and making kind of presentations about the competitors for the investor pitches. And essentially the feedback is that it's really cool, but that it's limited actionable data. And basically everything that we want to do, we want to have be very actionable. So we want to be able to say, this is what we're seeing in the data. And that's implying, that this or this is wrong with your swing. And then here's some drills to fix that. So the putting data that we have on hand at the moment isn't something that we think we can really leverage. That's something that we're kind of going to tear into once we actually get to launch and are seeing some live data and getting to play around with it some more. So right now we're actually just going to be kind of focusing on things like putts per hole, how many times you successfully can complete an up and down, things like that are kind of general indicators about the strength of your short game. And then, we will have a whole kind of improved section in the app, which is where our golf pro Alex Forte will lay out kind of his whole suite of tricks, tips, and drills for how you can get better at these aspects of your short game. So, while we might not be saying like you're getting side spin on your putter, we will be saying, we can see data that is indicating that this is an aspect of your short game you want to focus on. And here's a whole suite of drills and information from someone who is a really good golfer about how you can get better.
All right, thanks, you guys. I guess maybe it's time for a little bit of a shout out to a few people. I'd like to hear who your mentors have been and how they've helped you get to this point of success.
Yeah, absolutely. I know personally, I was introduced to business at a very young age. Both of my grandfathers and my father both started businesses. I've been around the industry or just kind of the whole business world for such a long time. I knew it was something that I wanted to pursue. So I had the idea and I've fallen on them a lot to say, what's the next step? What do I do here? Is this right? Is this wrong? Where do I go next? So they've been, super supportive through this whole process. So I know, there's somebody that I really look up to, all three of them. And they've been really helpful throughout all of this.
Yeah, so obviously shout out to my family. My mom's always been there for me, my sister, my dad, who I think I got my work ethic from. But then also shout out to Coach Camara. I think he's on here. He's always believed in me as an athlete, but more importantly as a person. And that's meant a lot to me. So thank you.
I'll continue on with the theme. Shout out to my family. My dad, uncle, and grandfather are actually all investors. So, it's just been great to get that support from them. And it's a lot of fun I get to talk with my grandfather about, a business. It's kind of something like when you're a kid, it's like, oh, one day when we're like running a business together, but to get to actually be involved with that with them. And my uncle has a lot of experience in procurement. So something we're going through with these manufacturing contracts, something we know very little bit about. So that expertise has been super valuable. Two other people who I can think of in the Hopkins community are Adam Toll and Mark Comiskey, who have been a huge help to Aaron and I. Have met with them a ton, from things like general strategy to financial projections, have kind of helped guide us through that and mentor us a lot. So we really appreciate that. And then I would just expand on PKs and just kind of say thank you to everyone involved in the Hopkins football program. Now, Aaron mentioned that WeFunder, and at the time we were hoping to get some money. But with the things that we've been pursuing with development, the cash that we brought in there turned out to be really critical. And also just to a lot of the guys on the team who, you're in college, you might not have that money. And there are a lot of guys who backed our campaign, which was just really cool and just some great support.
Yeah, for sure. I'll also second the shout out to Adam Toll. I had a really great conversation with him when he first came on board, and I know that he's been really helpful. I feel that generally speaking, we've had a really fortunate experience with the investors that have become a part of the company so far, whether they've been family members or just people that plainly private investors that believed in the company. it's been a great experience and definitely far exceeded my original expectations, although I guess maybe now it's something to be considered normal. I'll also shout out my family. I can see my brother Dylan is watching from Germany, where he's in a master's program for engineering. I'm sure he's drumming up some kind of company ideas right now while he's watching this. Our pops actually has his own company as well, but it's building, so it's a little different. Maybe he never really understood that I didn't want to swing a hammer and I just wanted to sit at a computer. Well, hopefully now I can make my dreams come true while sitting at a computer with some other people, and all the more true in the times that we're living in now with what's going on with COVID and things like that. But yeah, shout out to basically everybody who supported Graff and everyone who supported us personally, our friends and family. Everything has been, we've been very fortunate so far to have the kind of success that we've had. So it's been a great experience.
There was a question. It just went away.
Yeah, I just answered that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Mike.
Yeah, that was from Doug asking about, we've Doug, yeah, when as an investor, a lot of our investors as part of the We Fund our equity round are going to get to be actually the beta testers of the ball. I'm just asking when we think we'll have that, and we're confident right now that we'll have a fully functional ball and the software platform to accompany it in August. There have been some delays with everything going on with COVID. So we just kind of roll with the punches there. And it's been unfortunate because originally we thought that we were going to be shipping in June or July. But the reality of the situation is that it just is what it is. So whenever we get pushed back to, sometimes it's out of our hands.
Can I ask a question to everybody that's here? What's it like? And I'll omit myself from the answers, but what's it like to start a company during a pandemic?
I mean, it's been a super cool experience. We started, me, Patrick, and Mike basically lived together. We were on the football team together and saw each other every single day. So there's certainly, been challenges that have popped up, but, we're fortunate that we're able to do a lot of our development, through Zoom and, on the computer and stuff. A lot of the design work, a lot of planning, strategy that can all be done through the computer. We definitely took a hit when we couldn't get into the testing lab for a little bit, but that's been resolved. We're able to get the results that we need. So it's been a struggle, but it's been a great experience. We're able to be at home with our families and still take some great progress towards getting this product out to our customers.
Yeah, for me, it's been, if anything, better than outside of the quarantine, mainly because of timing. Like Aaron said, we finished a lot of the hardware testing right before this all started. So pretty much just sitting down and coding stuff to go for the software and sending emails out to people in Asia and Europe, trying to get manufacturing figured out. Since they're 12 hours behind anyways, can't really call them. Works out pretty well.
I think we gotta change up a little bit where everyone sits, because I look at like Aaron with the same background and Rowan with the same background, and I sit in the same spot for like 4 hours a day on Zoom, and we were on Zoom before this, and when this ends, we're gonna get on another call with the manufacturers. So I kind of like half of my day is spent looking at this computer screen with Aaron with that picture of him in the pool in the background.
It's very true.
All right. I've got another question for you. So I teach a course in social entrepreneurship, and I do like that you have a social impact as a percentage of your business and giving to charities and all that. One of the things I asked the students in that class is to be, what if they were successful with this, with their initiative, how would life be different for their grandchildren? And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about this, a little bit of a generational thing in terms of success related to this project.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's ultimately a very difficult one. From a social aspect, one of the things that we're really trying to establish is, Baltimore is our home. we were all brought together in the Baltimore community. We'd love to create jobs in Baltimore and bring people to the city and try to show some of the upside there. So in terms of generations, we'd love to, potentially have, families there and grow up there, and to continue to see Baltimore, improve and become a better city and contribute what we can to the city, because it's given so much to us. And I know some people don't always see the light of the tunnel of Baltimore, but we're super appreciative of it. So we'd love to give back in any way that we could towards the city.
I think something that's kind of part of what's
touching
built
on
into
that.
no, all you, PK.
All right, just touching on that, going more towards the grandchildren thing. Obviously, giving back to Baltimore is a big thing that we want to do moving forward, but I think more importantly, focusing on education. You see how poor some of the numbers are in Baltimore public schools. So focusing on that will probably help generations to come. And then more personally, just putting our success towards helping our generations to come, for us, get good education.
Yeah, I was just going to say something that actually kind of makes this a good business opportunity is that if you look at the golf industry right now, playing golf is an incredibly expensive sport. You're either a member of a public club or it costs, like $36 to play a round on average. A lot of the tools out there that we're talking about now that can actually track these metrics, things like the TrackMan, which costs up to $26,000. And the reality is if you're Tiger Woods, that's great. But if you're the average golfer, that's probably well out of your price range. And so something that we want to pursue and something that we've talked about, we want to expand into other sports is just how can we use this technology, which is relatively cheap to some of the things out there, to just give more people access to these sports and to improve in the way that we all want to. And the thing that's kind of nice there is that our incentive as a business is then kind of aligned with something that is generally, for the good of more people out there, just kind of helping to drive costs down through these technologies that are going to be cheaper than what currently exists.
Rowan, you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. Yeah. I same as these guys, I have a mysterious love for the city of Baltimore. I can't really place why. I did go to college there, so that was my first introduction to the city, although I grew up in New York. There's something special about Baltimore. There's kind of a mixture of opportunity, and also it's a city that obviously, you want to root for it. It's obviously, I think 500,000 people there or something like that. It's not the biggest city in the country, but every time I was there, I always felt like it has enormous potential. And to be a part of something that's going on there, whether it's creating jobs or whether it's just starting a company there, or which we more or less have, it feels all the more special because you feel that it actually contributes, and it's something that can be felt in the community. Something that I always liked about Baltimore is, being from New York, when something happens, when a party happens or when an event happens, it's not a surprise. It's New York. That this literally happening every hour. There's some kind of event. When something comes together in Baltimore, when someone hosts something, such as this meeting right here, it always feels special when it's rooted in Baltimore, because that several people had to roll up their sleeves and get the job done to make it come together. And I think that that's something really special about the city, and to be able to be a part of that thread and part of what kind of keeps the community going and driving forward, whether it's in athletics or tech or otherwise, I think would be really great for us.
All right, thanks you guys. I want to see if there are any questions from the audience that's there. I can keep asking a couple here or there, but I think I'm going to have a concluding kind of question. if there isn't anything going on. Any burning questions from the audience? All right. Well, so and you can I think it's a kind of question that you can kind of riff off of and take in a lot of different directions. So I think I'd like to know, what kind of message do you want to leave the audience with that have tuned into this?
Yeah, ultimately, I think, the biggest message that we're trying to get across is that, you can work hard and get stuff done. This was just an idea 2 years ago. It was a crazy idea. There's been a bunch of different, really professional major players in the industry try to get something like this done. And nobody's been able to, for multiple different reasons, whether it's, some of these top engineering challenges that we've been able to solve, or whether it's something else. But, we always believed in our vision and our dream. And we've had the same goal here, and that's to develop a smart golf ball and give players access to the analytics that they deserve. It all stems back to the idea that I had when I was 13, when I realized, it's not fair that these professionals have all this data and they can use that to improve, and we just don't. So I think at the end of the day, we're really happy that we have all this support behind us. And we want to leave people with the, idea that if not now, when, just if you have an idea, go for it and work hard. And, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we're finally starting to see it, and it's incredibly exciting. So I just encourage everyone to kind of take that jump and go for it.
Yeah, so kind of turning in a different direction, and to answer James's question, my message is to like, follow, and subscribe Graff Golf on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You'll see our progress day to day on there. You'll see some of Rowan's awesome posts. And thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, I think Aaron and PK both covered a lot of it. I just have to go back because I personally made a mistake, and I got a text message here reminding me of it. I just want to shout out my mom, because not just with Graff Golf, but just every day in life, kind of captain of the household. And now she even has to deal with us actually all being home. And when we were all in different states, that was tough enough as is. But just shout out mom for all the support.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what PK said. As the head of marketing, that's sort of my job to do that. No, I'll just say, it's an idea, right? I mean, we've all heard the Steve Jobs spiel about the importance of an idea and how strong your concept is, and being first, and et cetera, et cetera. All that I think is true. People are going to tell you that no, people are going to tell you that, well, that already exists basically, or someone's already done that, and they're doing it in a different way. It's better, and that maybe they're right. I mean, sometimes they might be right. And in this particular instance, I don't think they are, but maybe my belief has overcome my rational ability to decipher between the tech that exists out there. I think at this point, it doesn't matter. All of us are all in, and we're going to see this thing through, for better or for worse. Right now, we're fortunate to be seeing some success and some traction, and we're going to take that as far as it goes. And I think if you're out there having an idea of being an entrepreneur, you have an idea, you have it, or even if you just have a team of friends or colleagues that is a good team, and you don't even have the idea yet, I think the first step is just honestly getting something on the calendar. Start talking and start figuring out, put some steps together. No one that I've ever met, and I'm being honest, that I'm a bit older than these guys, puts together action plans as good as Aaron. I mean, if there are steps to be taken, Aaron will figure out what the steps are very quickly, and people will fall in line. And so you need that. And I think that's a big part of having a company, is literally just figuring out what the moves are and putting an action plan in place to make those moves. As far as the potency of the idea and all those kinds of things, sure, some companies have more brilliant ideas than others, more brilliant tech. Is that the determining factor between their success? I'm not sure, but you have to try. So.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks Ron for saying that. But just to wrap things up here, I just definitely want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here. I know everyone has a busy schedule, so it means a lot that you came here to listen to us, to speak with us. I do want to let you know you'll be getting a follow-up email with all of our social media. So like Rowan and PK mentioned, feel free to keep up to date with us. We'll be posting updates daily and weekly. So yeah, thank you a lot for coming. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jamie. We had a great time. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank
Thanks,
each
guys.
of you.